Good evening, everyone. Okay, let me continue on our table of specifications or the TOS, particularly on history, concepts, theories, and principles of environmental planning. So, are you seeing now okay, so you're seeing the screen of Jen. So it says 20%, so it means that 20% of the overall weight, like I think the land use or environmental planning processes is 45%. This one is 20. Um, so if we are to pick up the first topic here, which is environmental planning or environment, then planning and environmental planning. So it consists of 30%, number of items 30. So first thing, we need um to know, okay, we need to present the first topic here. Environmental planning integrates human activity with the natural world to ensure sustainability and resilience. We need to understand the processes of natural ecology, stewardship, and global environments or global environmental challenges is critical for developing effective planning solutions.
Ma'am?
Yeah, I just removed some noise outside. So I think TV is on side. I just so you're not hearing any background noise now, do you?
Wala na po, ma'am.
Okay. So we have also subtopic definition, nature, elements and processes of the environment and human ecology. That's 7%, or that's 7%. 7 items. Okay. So I need to start with 1.1. Recall the processes of natural ecology. So that's 1%, 1 item. What's natural ecology? So natural ecology involves the interaction of organisms with each other and their environment. So processes include um, nutrient cycling, energy flow, and population dynamics, which are crucial for maintaining ecosystem balance. So a question, a sample MCQ, like what's an example of a natural ecological process? So if the options include A, urban development, B, nutrient cycling in a forest ecosystem, C, construction of renewable energy systems, D, expansion of agricultural lands. So answer, I think I mentioned in letter B, it's nutrient cycling in a forest ecosystem. Is this responsive to the question, what's an example of natural ecological process? Okay. So, nutrient cycling, by the way, is a natural process critical for maintaining ecosystem balance by recycling essential elements. So, yeah. That's an example under 1.1. Then 1.2, explain the principles of human stewardship of the natural environment and its resources. So 1%, one item. But let me first give you a bird's eye view on 1.2. That human stewardship emphasizes the responsible management of natural resources to ensure their sustainability for future generations. So this involves one, conservation, two, restoration, and ethical use of resources, among others. Uh, for example, the question uh, would ask, which principle aligns with the concept of human stewardship of the environment? So it's asking about the principle. A, exploiting resources for immediate economic gains. B, restoring degraded ecosystems for long-term sustainability. C, prioritizing industrial expansion over environmental health. D, ignoring the needs of future generations. So, for A, C, and D, you can you can eliminate them because it implies, like a negative aspect. So it's not the principle that aligns with the concept of human stewardship of the environment, because it has a tone of positivity. So answer is B, restoring degraded ecosystems for long-term sustainability. Stewardship involves restoring and managing resources to preserve their value for future use. So you can use elimination there effectively by just observing the tone of the responses or the options there, because ACD um is they are negative statements. Okay, so only one has a positive statement that aligns with the concept of human stewardship of the environment. We go to 1.3, illustrate how specific ecological processes affect the outcome of evolution and how it in turn alters these processes. So quite a specific subtopic. So 2%, two items. Mm, okay. Ecological. So the ecological processes could be, or it's defined as natural selection. Uh, I mean, we can include natural selection as as a process, then also habitat changes, species interactions influence evolution. So because it's about ecological processes that affect the outcome of evolution. So human interventions like deforestation and pollution can disrupt these processes, leading to change in biodiversity. So a question like, how does deforestation affect evolutionary processes in ecosystems? A, by enhancing natural selection through species diversification. B, by disrupting habitats and decreasing biodiversity. C, by promoting stronger ecological balance. D, by maintaining stable population dynamics. So if you notice that this time around, we're looking for a negative statement, because the question is looking for, okay, let me repeat the question. How does deforestation affect, okay, evolutionary processes in ecosystems? So deforestation is a negative state is a term. So we can answer letter B. So by elimination, we can eliminate all others. And we have letter B is by disrupting habitats and decreasing biodiversity as an answer. So that's the only negative statement there. So we're looking for that because deforestation alters natural habitats, um, reducing the ability of species to adapt and thrive, impacting evolution. So please be careful in that. So um, elimination could be would be very, very helpful when you know, when you understand the question. Okay. So we have 1.4, identify the drivers of the ecosystem and its impact on human ecology. So that's 1%, one item. What are eco drivers? So it includes or it include climate change. And then you could also have land use change and resource extraction. So these are among the drivers that influence human health, socioeconomic conditions, and overall well-being. So if the question is which of the following is a primary, okay, you note the keywords, okay? So you need to really be very good in spotting keywords. So again, let me say the question, which of the following is a primary driver of ecosystem changes? So all may be drivers, but you need to be very responsive with your answer and you pick the best. You pick the closest uh, answer to the question. So, for example, letter A, seasonal farming practices. So, B, industrial pollution. C, recreational activities in natural parks. D, household water usage. So, it should be because it's asking about ecosystem change. So, what drives that? We can answer letter B, industrial pollution, because it's a significant driver that alters ecosystems and impacts human health and ecology. The rest are positive statements, so we need to pick a negative term to be responsive to the question. Then 1.5, analyze global environmental problems or issues and recommend solutions in terms of planning. So 2%, two items, um, analyze global environmental problems. So these are supposed to be global environmental issues such as climate change, deforestation, and water scarcity, okay, which require integrated planning solutions. So these include adopting renewable energy, implementing green infrastructure, and enforcing environmental regulations. Just among the many a long list of solutions. So question like, what's a sustainable planning solution for mitigating climate change? So it could be like a motherhood statement or question. So we can, for example, options would include A, increasing reliance on coal power plants, B, encouraging urban sprawl, C, developing renewable energy systems, D, promoting single-use plastic. So, um, again, by elimination process, you can cross out all those that are negative. So we have letter C as the only or as the remaining positive statement to answer, yeah, and to be responsive to that question. What is a sustainable planning solution for mitigating climate change? So letter C is developing renewable energy systems. Renewable energy systems reduce carbon emissions, addressing the root cause of climate change in a sustainable manner. So I think we can proceed with number two. Number two, so let me see. Okay, history and foundation of planning and environmental planning. So that's 7% all in all, 7 items. So we can break that down into the subtopics. 2.1, identify key ideas, meanings, and theories in planning and environmental planning. Historically, from the 19th century to the present, so it's very specific. Okay. The history of planning traces back to, in this particular, um, yeah, subtopic in this. So it says from the 19th century to the present. So, in that particular context, the history of planning traces back to the 19th century with urbanization during the Industrial Revolution. Early theories such as Ebenezer Howard's Garden City concept emphasize sustainable living and green spaces. So modern planning integrates technological advancement with social, economic, and environmental considerations. So if the question is who introduced the Garden City concept promoting sustainable and self-contained communities? So I just mentioned who did what, or who owns that concept of Garden City. So for example, A, Patrick Geddes, B, Lou Corbusier, C, Ebenezer Howard, D, Jane Jacobs. So I mentioned about Ebenezer Howard because Howard's Garden City concept aimed to integrate green spaces with urban living to achieve sustainable communities. So we have an answer C. Okay. Um, we can proceed to 2.2. Appraise the successes, failures in early planning efforts and approaches. So 2%, 2 items. To give you a background on, I think I'm already covered this for those early registrants in this review class. But anyway, I will be I will be repeating, of course, history for the new registrants. So, yeah, let me get this right. Early planning efforts like the gridiron street layout in ancient cities were innovative but often lacked considerations for growth, mobility, and public health. So similarly, modernist planning by Le Corbusier, while visionary, often failed to address the social and cultural dimensions of urban life. So because 2.2 there is appraising successes and failures. So we need to, be able to understand or to identify who were contributed to the successes and to the failures in early planning efforts and approaches. So if the question is, which of the following is a significant critic of Le Corbusier's radiant city model? Um, so letter A, overemphasis on ecological conservation. B, neglect of social and cultural aspects in urban design. C, lack of technological innovation. And D, limited focus on aesthetic architecture. So it's asking about critics. So, of Le Corbusier. So before you're able to answer that, you should know Lou Corbusier's radiant city model, or at least you should know who Lou Corbusier is. So answer is letter B, neglect of social and cultural aspects in urban design, because Lou Corbusier's radiant city model focused heavily on functionality, often at the expense of human-centric and cultural needs. So don't worry if you're a bit uncomfortable of those questions, but we would be able to go back again to this particular topic. So just to make sure we're covering up all these sub items here. So on history and theory. So we can go to 2.3. Apply key concepts, theories, and paradigms, okay, in environmental planning in the context of sustainable development. So, environmental planning theories like sustainable development emphasize balancing economic growth, social equity, and environmental protection. So, but of course, there are more, but these are key, key um, aspects of frameworks such as triple bottom line or TBL guide planners in addressing these interconnected goals. So if it will ask you which framework is commonly used in environmental planning to balance economic, environmental, and social aspects, so it may not be a perfect question for this particular sub-item, but of course, yeah, triple bottom line is when you're be able it represents that framework to guiding planners to address interconnected goals. So you know very well, so SWOT analysis. So letter B, SWOT analysis. So it's not the answer, so you can eliminate that. C, urban morphology theory, not that. Then D, regional planning model. So answer is triple bottom line because it focuses on integrating sustainability principles by addressing economic, social, and environmental aspects equally. So we can go to number 3, planning concepts, goals, nature, classification, and ethics of urban planning, or ethics of planning and environmental planning. So that's 8%, 8 items is spread and the following sub-items. 3.1, define the various planning concepts. Planning involves setting objectives and determining the means to achieve them. So key planning concepts include spatial planning, strategic planning, environmental planning, and more. So each concept addresses specific objectives such as spatial organization, long-term goals, or ecological sustainability. So the question is, which planning concept focuses on the strategic placement of land uses, okay, to maximize efficiency and minimize conflicts? A, environmental planning; B, strategic planning; C, spatial planning; D, social planning. So, all could qualify as answer to the question, but you need to get to the bottom of it because it's asking about strategic placement of land uses. So, you can eliminate environmental planning, eliminate also strategic planning. Okay, leave that special planning because that's the correct answer. And then social planning, there's nothing, it did not ask about social planning. So answer is C, spatial planning, because so spatial planning organizes land uses to optimize resources and reduce conflicts in a specific area. Okay, so don't mistake that regarding the answer that you may be tempted to answer letter B, which is the strategic planning, but it says strategic placement of land uses. So 3.2 is appraise the logical consistency between the laws and the environmental situations or issues and the needs of the constituents. Environmental planning, okay, so that's 3%, three items. Environmental planning requires aligning laws and policies with actual environmental conditions and community needs. For example, zoning laws must consider urban growth while protecting sensitive ecosystems. So if the question is which principle ensures that laws governing urban expansion are consistent with protecting ecological systems. So, okay, options. Letter A, precautionary principle. B, logical consistency. Remember, okay, there's a word consistent there. And then environmental sustainability. And then D, polluter pays principle. So there's nothing about precautionary there, did not mention. But definitely consistent is mentioned as a principle. So environmental sustainability. So it's not the environmental sustainability. It's asking, and not definitely not the polluter pays principle. So logical consistency, letter B. Okay, it's the correct answer because it ensures that policies are coherent with environmental realities and societal needs. So there's yeah, it requires logical consistency. Again, not a perfect question, but at least that the test-taking techniques there is present. Okay. 3.3, analyze ethical and philosophical underpinnings of environmental planning toward maintaining environmental justice. So a lot of terminologies there. So environmental planning must adhere to ethical principles. Okay, that's one. What are these ethical principles? They are number one, equity. Number two, inclusivity. Number three, justice. So in this context, philosophical perspectives like utilitarianism and deontology guide planners in decision making, ensuring benefits for the majority while protecting vulnerable groups. So, if the question is which ethical principle emphasizes fairness in distributing environmental benefits and burdens? So, A, environmental justice. B, utilitarianism. C, sustainability. D, deontology. So, because the question is asking about, or it emphasizes fairness. So, among the four options, you can readily choose environmental justice because it focuses on equitable access to resources and protection from environmental harm for all community members. So we can go to 3.4, apply the code of ethics and of environmental planning in professional practice. The Code of Ethics in Environmental Planning outlines the professional responsibilities of planners to their clients, to the public, the environment, and more. So key tenets include honesty, accountability, advocacy, etc. for sustainable development. So a question like a planner faced with conflict or with a conflict between a client's requests and environmental sustainability should prioritize A, the client's request, B, public opinion, C, the code of ethics, D, financial feasibility. So, why do you need to answer letter C, the code of ethics? Because professional ethics require planners to prioritize sustainable development. Okay, and the public good over individual client interest. So if one of the choices included the client's request, so you can eliminate that. Public opinion, you can eliminate that also. Financial feasibility, no mention about financial feasibility here because the question is a planner faced with a conflict between a client's request and environmental sustainability. So what should you prioritize? So you need to choose, and that's why we're choosing the code of ethics because it requires us planners to prioritize sustainable development, public good over individual client interests. So we can go to number 4, training roles and advocacies of environmental planners, countries, organizations, and the people. Um, well, I would like to go back again to renowned planning visionaries like Ebenezer Howard. We also have Patrick Geddes. So it's the father of regional planning. You remember that? So Jane Jacobs, so all of them have shaped modern environmental planning. So Howard's Garden Cities of Tomorrow emphasize sustainable communities with a balance between urban and rural elements, while Jacobs advocated for community-based urban design, focusing on the importance of um, vibrant neighborhoods and local interactions. So, if the question is which planning visionary is known for the Garden Cities of Tomorrow concept, so you already know that it should be Ebenezer Howard because his concept promotes sustainable and balanced communities integrating urban and rural features. So, okay. So there's more memory work that should be done at your side so that you can answer readily on this kind of questions. Okay. So 4.2, examine the contributions of environmental planning to society and nation building. 3%, 3 items. So, well, it's a no-brainer already to say environmental planning fosters sustainable development. So we keep repeating that. It mitigates climate change impacts and ensures the equitable distribution of resources. So that's environmental planning. So um relating that to nation building because it says to society, eh, contributions of environmental planning to society and nation building. So we need to address that. First thing, so what are these nation building efforts related to environmental planning? So we have disaster resilience programs, we have urban renewal projects, green infrastructure initiatives, and more. So they demonstrate how environmental planning contributes to economic growth and social stability. So if the question is which is a primary contribution of environmental planning to nation building, A, increasing industrialization, B, promoting urban sprawl. So remember, these are all negative statements that I am just I'm providing as options. C, enhancing disaster resilience. D, encouraging consumerism. So it's only letter C, enhancing disaster resilience that that's responsive to the question. So because environmental planning aims to protect communities by integrating disaster resilience into development strategies. So 4.3, evaluate the extent to which international agreements or commitments are being observed and complied with by governments. So, so what are these global agreements? So we have Paris agreements and the UN SDGs. So, both guide nations in achieving environmental sustainability. But of course, there are more international commitments, like what else do we have, like conventions, etc. So there are sources of international law in this context. So environmental planners assess government compliance through policy reviews, also through program evaluations and performance metrics, ensuring alignment with international commitments. So if the question is, which international agreement focuses on reducing greenhouse gas emissions to combat climate change? So if we have options like A, Kyoto Protocol, B, Paris Agreement, C, Rio Declaration, D, Agenda 21. So answer is the Paris Agreement, because it sets targets for reducing emissions and limiting global temperature rise to combat climate change. So, do you know what's Kyoto Protocol? If you have encountered this, especially for those who are uh with government, okay? You you have probably encountered Kyoto Protocol that was adopted in December 11, 1997. So, um, yeah, owing to a complex ratification process, so we entered into to this protocol, or there are actually 192 parties to the Kyoto Protocol. So, in short, the Kyoto Protocol operationalizes the UN framework convention on climate change. Okay, so please don't forget that. Also, what did I say? The Kyoto Protocol. So you already know what is um what is Paris Agreement. How about Rio Declaration? Um, well, Rio Declaration is what that was in 1992. Okay, that reaffirming. So that's on the Rio Declaration on Environment and Development. So it's also one of those international agreements. But the question is, I think the question I ask you is, which international agreement focuses on reducing greenhouse gas? So that's Paris Agreement. Okay. How about Agenda 21? What's Agenda 21? That's it's also on United Nations with regard to sustainable development. So the correct answer, I mentioned already, Paris Agreement. So for reducing emissions and limiting global temperature rise to combat climate change. So it's kind of tricky if you are answering that, but I advise that you keep reading on all these international agreements so that you can find distinctions, and it could be easy to to recall during the board exams. So we have letter B, city planning and development. So 40%, 40 items. So 40 items, you can imagine, and spread and all these subtopics. So the first subtopic is origin, development, and planning of early cities. So now 1.1, let's proceed with 1.1. Um, describe the origin of cities throughout world history and the theoretical and methodological foundation of human settlements from the early Bronze Age to the 21st century. So it's kind of very specific uh, that we need to read, the origin of cities dating back to the Neolithic Revolution when humans transitioned from nomadic lifestyles. So to settled agricultural communities. So I think I also explained that, but for those who were not around during that um, discussion, and you can go back to our recording, or you can join again another round of discussions on history. So early cities such as Mesopotamia's Uruk and Egypt's Thebes developed around rivers, enabling agriculture and trade. So theoretical frameworks like central place theory explain urban settlements distribution and functions, while the Industrial Revolution catalyzed urbanization in the modern era. So if the question is which early city is known as one of the first urban centers in world history, so I think I mentioned about Europe. So um, the options would be included there that could be included there is A, Athens, so B, Rome, so, and many more. But Uruk is located in Mesopotamia and is one of the earliest non cities characterized by agriculture, trade, and governance. So anyway, there are 40 items. No, 1.1, there are 2 items there. So we can proceed with 1.2, analyze the patterns of human settlements and the factors influencing their formation. So, settlement patterns are influenced by physical geography, such as access to water, fertile soil, etc. Also, they are influenced by social political factors such as trade routes, security, and also influenced by technological advancement, many more. Um, so especially in transportation systems, right? So linear, clustered, dispersed settlements and many formations are typical patterns shaped by these variables. So, for example, the Nile River settlements followed a linear pattern due to water dependency. So, if the question is, which factor primarily influences the formation of linear settlement patterns? So, I hope you will remember when you're taking the board exam and this question or similar questions would be asked. So if the choices are A, mountainous terrain, B, political boundaries, C, availability of forest, D, proximity to rivers. So I already mentioned here that proximity to rivers is um yeah, normally river settlements, follow a linear pattern. So and I also mentioned linear settlements often develop along rivers, providing resources like water and transportation. So can go to 1.3. Appraise the development of cities in terms of its socio-economic, political, and cultural dimensions. Um, so cities evolve as socio-economic hubs for trade and industry, political centers for governance, and cultural epicenters for innovation and heritage. For example, New York City emerged as a global financial hub, while Paris is renowned for its cultural and artistic contributions. Analyzing these dimensions highlights urban development's complexity and diversity. So, if the question is which city is best known for its dual role as a cultural and financial center in modern history, so A, Tokyo, B, Paris, C, London, the New York, so you can readily answer New York because it serves as both a global financial hub, like for example, because of the Wall Street, and a cultural icon. They have lots of museums, and there's also the Broadway that, demonstrate how New York City serves as a cultural icon. So number two, city growth, urbanization, ecological processes, and location. Okay. Let me just check the microphone if it's working because last time, yeah, we did not have any content because the audio was not turned on. So for some reasons, so let me, okay, go to that number two. Um, 2.1. So identify the recurring urbanization problems affecting the development of cities. So urbanization problems arise from rapid population growth. It also arise from infrastructure strain and environmental degradation, among others. So common issues include traffic congestion, inadequate housing, urban sprawl, pollution, and overburdened public services. For example, Metro Manila faces challenges with flooding due to poor urban drainage and excessive land use conversion. So, if the question is, which of the following is not a common urbanization problem? So, take note of that. Not a common urbanization problem. So, A, traffic congestion, B, urban sprawl, C, increased biodiversity, D, pollution. So you have to look for um because not a common urbanization problem means that it should be positive. So the only positive answer there is increased biodiversity. So it's typically associated with ecological restoration rather than urbanization problems, which often lead to biodiversity loss. So 2.2, correlate the spatial impacts, that is size, density, and form emanating from anthropogenic activities of cities. So anthropogenic, what are these anthropogenic activities? Construction, industrialization, and transportation systems. They all alter this city's spatial characteristics. So high density areas like central business districts, or what we call the CBDs, face vertical growth, while urban sprawl leads to horizontal expansion. Spatial forms include concentric zones. So you remember that sectors, multiple nuclei, wedge. So they're all described in urban planning models. So a question like what spatial impact is most associated with urban sprawl? So I already mentioned about that. What is the effect? Okay, so of urban sprawl. So A, increased vertical growth. Definitely you can eliminate that because like in the case of the CBD, so they're facing um yeah, high density areas like CBDs face vertical growth problems. So letter B, higher population density. So it's not about population density. C, expansion into suburban areas. D, formation of green belts. So um we can eliminate also formation of green belts because the answer is expansion in suburban areas because well, urban sprawl leads to horizontal expansion. So it's not vertically, but it's horizontally. It means that toward suburban areas, okay, toward the rural areas. So expansion into urban suburban or into suburban areas is the correct answer. So urban sprawl typically involves cities expanding horizontally into suburban and rural areas. We have 2.3, cite the legal basis in creating cities in the Philippines setting. Okay. In the Philippines, city creation is governed by the local government code, or what we otherwise known as the RA 72160 or and special laws as well. So criteria include population, income, and land area requirements. So urbanization must align with national development goals as stipulated in planning frameworks like the National Urban Development and Housing Framework, or the NUDHF. So a question like, which law primarily governs the creation of cities in Philippines? So I already mentioned about the local government code. Um, so we can go to number 3. Sorry about the noise. Classification and types of cities according to function, location, size, and administration. So that's 10%. So it's huge. 10%, 10 items. So cities around are categorized based on their geographical location. What else? Physical size. Also, their surrounding environment. So examples include coastal cities and then inland cities also. Small cities and metropolitan centers. So each type has unique planning challenges and economic drivers. Like for example, Cebu City. So they consider that a coastal city. So it has its own unique planning challenges. Even its inland city like the Baguio. So they also have their own unique planning challenges. If the question is, which of the following is an inland city in the Philippines? Um, you can, if you are very familiar of all the cities in Philippines, then it's not very difficult for you to answer that. But if you can still, if you are not familiar and you can eliminate, so that would be good for you. Baguio City I mentioned already, so it's inland, but not besides Baguio, so there are more inland city in the Philippines. So it depends on the what you would see on the choices. So we can move to 3.2. Compare the characteristics of cities according to function. So cities can serve different functions such as administrative centers like Manila. Okay. Um, we also have industrial hubs. Like we can have Cavite as an example, education centers, cultural hubs like vegan. So the functional classification is important for resource allocation and urban development. So if the question is what's the primary function of vegan cities, I can readily answer it's cultural, because vegan city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site recognized for its cultural and historical significance. So at least you have to know all the different functional classifications of, especially of our key cities in Philippines. Otherwise, yeah, I think it's not really very difficult to familiarize ourselves with all these functional classifications. Like, you have to know the different locations of economic zones, so to make it industrial, isn't it? And those, for example, educational, of course, number one there is we have in Manila, Quezon City, as educational hub, right? But otherwise, we can also find educational hubs in the Visayas, in Mindanao. So again, you need to be very familiar, especially if it is asking about the largest, or you have to take note about descriptors. 3.3 classifies cities according to administrative and political dimensions. Cities are classified as highly urbanized cities, HUCs. Then also independent component cities, or the ICCs, or component cities under the Philippine government system. So, do you know which cities are considered highly urbanized cities? So, of course, in Manila, we are very familiar with all the highly urbanized cities in Manila, or Metro Manila, or the NCR. How about in the Visayas? How about in Mindanao? So do we have one as a highly urbanized city in Mindanao? Like for example, Cagayan de Oro, is it already considered HUC? Of course, Cebu is one of them. Davao also. Once it becomes HUC, so they're independent of provincial governance, while component cities are under provincial administration. So you can now expect question like which of the following is a highly urbanized city in the Philippines? So A, Bacolod, B, Tarlac City, C, San Fernando, D, Rojas City. So we can readily answer Bacolod. Is it Bacolod City among them? Because I think Bacolod City already is classified as highly urbanized city. Otherwise, you can correct me. Because it's already independent of Negros Occidental's provincial governments. Is it correct? So 3.4, interpret the definition of cities in the Philippines. So again, we have a reference. We have a legal base, the Local Government Code or RA 7160, which defines cities based on income, population, and land area. They're all criteria. Okay, so defining cities. So cities must meet specific thresholds in annual income to gain HUC or ICC status. These classifications impact governance, what else? Fiscal autonomy and service delivery. So if the question is, according to the Local Government Code of 1991, what is one criterion for a municipality to be converted into cities? A, population of at least 10,000. B, annual income of at least 100 million. C, total land area of 10,000 hectares. D, presence of central business district. So we can, yeah, if you find that, so we need to be very familiar of the criterion. Yeah, for the choices, I think we can answer annual income of at least what, because we're talking about conversion of municipality to become city. 100 million, is it 100 million? So the local government code specifies in income requirement along with population and land area for cityhood eligibility. There are also, okay, we can go to number 4, new paradigms and visions in city planning development strategies. Right there. Okay. So that's 10%. And let's do one by one. 4.1, analyze existing policies on environmental issues and urban risk management in the context of city resiliency. So city planning has evolved to incorporate policies that address environmental sustainability and urban risks, such as flooding, earthquakes, climate change, etc. So key policies include the National Urban Development Housing Framework, or the NUDHF, and disaster risk reduction measures outlined in RA 10121, which is the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act. The focus is on ensuring resiliency through comprehensive urban risk management strategies. So if the question is which law in the Philippines focuses on DRR and management of at the local government level, so answer is RA 10121, because it mandates the establishment of local DRRM councils to mitigate risk and enhance resiliency. 4.2 is illustrate new paradigms in the planning and development of cities. So where is it? So there are new paradigms in urban planning. Those that emphasize sustainable development, also those that emphasize smart cities and green infrastructure, among others. These approaches prioritize the integration of technology, nature-based solutions, and community-centric development. So examples include the use of renewable energy, smart traffic systems, and green belts. So if the question is, which of the following is a characteristic of a smart city? A, high dependence on fossil fuels. B, advanced technology integration for public services. C, expansion without zoning ordinances. D, exclusive focus on industrial growth. So, because we're talking about smart cities, so we can answer letter B, advanced technology integration for public services, because smart cities utilize technology to improve infrastructure, public services, and environmental sustainability. We can go to 4.3, apply global and local best practices and in and enhancing the livability of a city. So that's 3%, 3 items. Well, best practices in urban planning include Singapore's greenery initiatives, like also Curitiba, if you are very familiar, Curitiba's efficient public transportation. In the Philippines, we also have our green building program. So these practices enhance livability through improved mobility, environmental protection, and efficient urban design. So if the question is which city is known for its efficient bus rapid transit system, often cited as a global best practice in urban mobility. A, Tokyo. B, Curitiba. C, Manila. D, Angeles. So, um, yeah, it's between Tokyo and Curitiba because Curitiba, Brazil is renowned for its BRT system, which has inspired similar systems worldwide. But of course, we cannot also, um, yeah, we cannot also ignore Tokyo's initiatives, particularly in transport planning. So, okay, we can go to 4.4. Examine the influence of urbanization on migration and mobility, transportation and infrastructure planning. So 3%. Okay, there are many concepts there. 3%, 3 items. So, well, urbanization impacts migration patterns. Okay, you know that creating challenges in many areas like mobility, housing, and transportation. Infrastructure planning must address these issues by designing inclusive, multimodal transportation systems and equitable housing policies to accommodate urban growth. So if the question is, what is one major challenge posed by rapid urbanization? So, decreased demand for public transportation. So that's something positive. So you eliminate that. B, increased suburbanization without population growth. That's also something like positive. And then C, overcrowding and pressure on infrastructure. So that's negative. And then D is reduction in migration to urban areas. So that's positive. So the only thing negative there is overcrowding and pressure on infrastructure. Going back to the question, what is one major challenge posed by rapid urbanization? So rapid urbanization often results in overcrowding, which places significant pressure on urban infrastructure and services. The answer is overcrowding and pressure on infrastructure. So we have letter C, regions, regional planning and development. Okay. So we have number 1, concepts, nature, and classification of regions. regional delineation and centers through history. So that's 10%, 10 items. So 1.1, cite the significant milestones in the evolution of regional planning. So we're now in the aspect or on the regional planning questions. Okay. From the 19th century to the present. So the evolution, okay, what is 1.1? The evolution of regional planning reflects shifts in societal priorities and technological advancements. So there are key milestones. So from 19th century, that's emergence of urban reform movements addressing industrialization's impacts. And then 20th century, that's the introduction of new towns and regional growth centers like Ebenezer Howard's Garden Cities and Patrick Geddes regional survey concepts. So, and then for the 21st century, yeah, we had sustainable development, regional resilience to address climate change and globalization. So if the question is which regional planning concept introduced the idea of self-sustained communities surrounded by green belts, so we can answer garden cities. So the choices could be smart growth, garden cities, metropolitan regions, industrial clusters. But the question is self-sustained communities surrounded by green belts. Okay, just think about that and be and always remember that speaking of green belts, okay, that's aligned with the garden cities concept of proposed by Ebenezer Howard. Uh, focuses on self-sustained communities surrounded by green belts, balancing urban and rural living. So at 1.2 is apply the historical development of regional planning, its theories and concepts from its 19th century roots to contemporary new regionalism. So it's 3%, 3 items. I think that's the one. 1.1. Okay. So in that 1.2, I hope you still remember the theories of regional planning that have evolved. Number one is you remember the growth pole theory, Francois. So we need to pronounce that correctly, or yeah, it's not an oral exam, so it's okay. Francois Peru emphasize the importance of key centers driving regional development. So that's growth pole theory. Then we also have the central place theory. So this is one of the, most universal, most renowned, theory. Uh, yeah, that's Walter Christoller model. So Walter Christoller's model explained the spatial distribution of services. You remember that? Then new regionalism emphasizes sustainability, inclusivity, and regional governance. So if the question is which theory explains the spatial arrangement of settlements and their hierarchy based on market areas. So that's what Walter Christoller's model, which is called the central place theory. He explained how settlements are spatially organized to optimize delivery based on market areas. So, don't worry. Yeah, I will have a second round of discussions on these theories. Then 1.3, name the various types, classifications, and nature of regions. So regions can be classified on, remember the different classification of regions. We have formal regions. They are defined by uniform characteristics such as climate zones. And then we also have functional regions. They are defined by networks and connections, the metropolitan areas, and many more types of regions. So If it's asking about, if the question is which type of regions defined by its functional connections, such as trade or transportation? So, of A, formal region, B, functional region, then C is an ecological region, and many more. So, already mentioned B, functional region. So that's the answer because functional regions are defined by their connections, such as trade routes, commuting patterns, or communication networks. For 1.4, categorize the types and classification of regions. So, there are different categories of regions like economic regions. And so, I think it's easy to understand that it's based on economic activities like the industrial belts, okay? Uh, and what we call the economic zones. Okay, then political regions also. So they are defined by administrative boundaries, like provinces, say, cities. So or what else? Like the MMDA, it is a unique administrative boundary. Um, Okay, then ecological. So what are the ecological regions? They are defined by ecosystems and natural resources. So if the question, I already, uh, no question yet, right? So if our MCQ, would be an ecological region is typically classified based on A, administrative boundaries, B, ecosystems and biodiversity, C, cultural, D, economic specialization. So the mere mention of ecological region, it means that it's related to ecosystems and biodiversity because ecological regions are categorized by natural features, ecosystems, and biodiversity. Number two, creation, organization, and structure of regions in the Philippine setting. So 10%, 10 items, but split into the sub-items here. So 2.1, compare the organization features of regions in terms of territorial and political jurisdiction. Regions in the Philippines are administrative divisions that serve as intermediaries between the national and local government. So there are key organizational features, which include, okay, as mentioned in 2.1, is it's territorial. So territorial jurisdiction and meaning they're defined by geographical boundaries and socioeconomic characteristics. Then political jurisdiction is there it determines the extent of authority in governance, planning, and implementation of regional policies and projects. For example, the NCR is a highly urbanized region with no provincial subdivisions. So, while the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao has its own parliament and broader autonomy. So, if the question is which of the following regions in the Philippines has its own parliamentary government. So ACAR, BNCR, C, BARM, D, region for A. So the answer is BARM because the BARM has a parliamentary system as part of its autonomy under the Bangsamoro Organic Law. So 2.2, apply the administrative structure. So that's the next page already. Let me check that. Okay. Um, Apply the administrative structure or regions in the Philippine setting. The administrative structure varies depending on the region's purpose and characteristics. Like administrative regions, these are coordinated by regional development councils or the RDCs, such as Region 7, for example, the Central Visayas. So, and then there are also a structure like what we call the autonomous regions. So they are governed by their organic laws like the BARM. Now, there are also specialized structures. Some regions have specialized agencies such as the SBMA, the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority in Region 3. So if the question is what entity typically coordinates regional development planning and implementation in the Philippines. So ALGU, BRDC, C, the DILG, D, Congress. So answer is RDC because RDCs are the primary coordinating bodies for regional planning and development in the Philippines. So we go to 2.3, relate the role of regions in national development of various laws and legal orders. Um, hmm. Regions contribute to national development by first, acting as hubs for economic growth. So they're facilitated by laws like the Special Economic Zone Act, okay, or the RA 7916 or 16, and then supporting the decentralization as mandated by the LG Code, and then third is addressing unique regional challenges through specific legislation such as the BARM. So, if the question is which of the following or which law institutionalized the decentralization of governance in the Philippines, of course, we need to answer the local government code or the RA 7160 because it institutionalized the centralization, empowering local governments and regions in planning and governance. So, three policies, principles, and strategies in regional planning and development. So that's 10%, 10 items. 3.1 is evaluate public political intervention and development policies in regional planning in the Philippine setting. So, public and political interventions play a vital role in shaping regional planning outcomes. Examples include decentralization policies. It was the local government code that empowered LGUs to take charge of regional development, right? So then we also have national development programs, the Build program, emphasizes infrastructure development in key regions, and then the special economic zone. Also, the RA 7916 supports economic zones to enhance regional competitiveness. So challenges include balancing development priorities and addressing political biases. So if the question is which policy centralizes governance to enable local governments to take charge of regional development, so answer is again, local government code because it decentralizes governance and empowers local governments to oversee regional development initiatives. Okay, so 3.2, distinguish regional planning in the context of regional economic development, development corridors, integrated area development, etc. So this is very much of those initiatives coming from NEDA. So 3.2, okay. Regional planning encompasses various frameworks. So we're talking about frameworks here that regional economic development focuses on industries and investments within regions. Also, the development corridors here simply connect regions through infrastructure for economic integration, such as the Subic-Clark Tarlac corridor. And then there's the IAD, the Integrated Area Development, or simply IAD. These are plans for comprehensive land use that considers economic, social, and environmental factors. So if the question is, what's the primary goal of development corridors? So A, preserve ecological integrity. B, promote interregional connectivity. C, decentralized governance. D, focus on urbanization. So it's the development corridors promote interregional connectivity. So it's among I included that in the choices. So B, it's promote interregional connectivity. Development corridors connect different regions through infrastructure to boost economic integration and mobility. For 3.3, apply global sustainable development practices to regional planning and development. So, for the 3.3, so 4%, 4 items. Global sustainable development practices emphasize first environmental stewardship. So by adopting renewable energy and conserving resources. Another emphasis is on social equity. So by reducing regional disparities through inclusive policies. So you remember when I mentioned about the growth point, growth area concepts. And then third is, of course, economic viability by supporting sustainable industries and investments. So we have the UN SDGs guiding these efforts globally and are integrated into regional policies in the Philippines. So if the question is which global framework, okay, it already emphasized on the one keyword, which global framework is most aligned with promoting sustainability in regional planning. So, A, Agenda 21, B, Kyoto Protocol, C, UN SDGs, and then D, Paris Agreement. So what is the answer? All right. So, yeah, that one is, I mentioned the SDGs. So, it provides a comprehensive framework for sustainable development globally, including regional planning. So, I think that's 3.3 apply. So I think we're done. We're done with the okay with this particular. So let me see. Let's see how many pages more. Yeah, I think we need to, Jen, we need to cut from here. Okay, we need to cut here so that we will have a recording again for the next table of specifications. So I think this is the last one, which covers plan implementation, legal aspects, and plan administration in environmental planning. So that's 35%. So we can cut here and we can have again another recording. So, okay.